You wake up at 6:47 a.m. Not 6:45. Not 7 o'clock. 6:47. It's Tuesday. The alarm never went off. Your phone was dead. But your eyes opened anyway, the same moment they've opened for the last 247 days. Your body doesn't ask permission anymore. It doesn't negotiate with comfort. It doesn't care that your bed is warm or that the world outside is still dark. This isn't discipline as you've been taught it. This isn't motivation. This isn't willpower grinding against resistance like gears that might snap. This isn't you white-knuckling through another day, fighting yourself, hating the process, counting down to when you can finally rest. This is something else entirely. And here's what terrifies most people: you can see it happening in others. You watch someone at the gym do their 5th set when their legs are screaming. You see a creator post every single day while you're still trying to figure out how to show up twice a week. You notice someone turning down dessert without the internal civil war. You observe them make the hard choice without the performance, without the announcement, without needing anyone to know. They're not special. They weren't born different. But something about them is fundamentally different than it was before. And you want to know what it is. The problem is this: everyone will tell you it's about finding your why. They'll sell you routines and habit stacks and accountability partners. They'll show you spreadsheets and streak counters and motivational videos. They'll pump you with dopamine hits and tell you that consistency is just one more day than yesterday. But none of that explains why you can start something with genuine enthusiasm, follow every rule for 3 weeks, and then one morning, just one morning, something inside you breaks. Not your body. Not your circumstances. Not even your schedule. Something psychological collapses. And then you're back to zero. This script isn't about fixing that cycle. It's about understanding why the cycle exists in the first place. It's about the psychology that either locks you into consistency or keeps ejecting you from it. It's about the identity level transformation that has to happen before consistency becomes automatic. The real question isn't how to stay consistent. The real question is, what has to change in how you see yourself for consistency to stop being a battle? If you're watching this because you've started and stopped 100 times, because you've made promises to yourself you didn't keep, because you feel like consistency is something that just doesn't work for you, hit that subscribe button. Because in the next minutes, we're going to dismantle the myth that consistency is about discipline. We're going to show you the actual psychological mechanism that keeps people locked in, and more importantly, we're going to show you how to access it. Like this video, comment below which area of your life consistency has escaped you, and share this with someone who needs to hear that consistency isn't torture, it's a shift in identity. Let's go. Most people approach consistency like they're negotiating with an enemy. They set a goal. They create a plan. They decide, Monday through Friday, no exceptions. They build the system. They prepare mentally. They get excited. And for 18 days, maybe 25 days, maybe even 47 days, they follow through. Then something happens. It's small. It's almost nothing. It's just one day where they don't show up. And immediately, the internal dialogue starts: I've already broken the streak. The whole thing is ruined. I might as well eat the whole cake since I already had one slice. If I'm not doing it 100%, why do it at all? This is the exact moment where they're still operating under the assumption that consistency is an external performance. That it's something they're doing rather than something they're being. Here's the psychological trap: they've never actually changed. They've only been performing change. They've been wearing the costume of a consistent person while remaining internally someone who doesn't trust themselves, who sees discipline as punishment, who experiences their own commitment as pressure rather than freedom. This is why so many people can be disciplined in one area but completely undisciplined in another. Your coworker never misses the gym but can't finish a book. Your friend maintains a spotless apartment but can't meditate for 5 minutes. Your partner is obsessively consistent with work but chaotic with sleep. They're not inconsistent people. They're people who've had a psychological shift in one specific area but nowhere else. The consistency you see in successful people isn't the result of them trying harder. It's the result of something deeper. They've changed their identity around that specific behavior. They're not someone who has to do it. They're someone who is doing it. There's a difference so profound it changes everything. Think about the last time you tried to start something new. A fitness routine. Learning a language. Daily writing. Meditation. Whatever it was, you probably approached it as an external thing you were adding to your life. You treated it like a chore, a task, a checkbox. You expected yourself to maintain enthusiasm about something that hadn't yet become integrated into how you see yourself. This is why most consistency attempts fail before they really begin. The person isn't building consistency. They're just trying to force themselves to do something they haven't yet become. Here's where it gets uncomfortable to look at. Most people who struggle with consistency aren't actually lacking discipline. They're lacking permission. Permission to be the kind of person who does this thing. Permission to stop apologizing for their commitment. Permission to stop treating their own values like temporary experiments that can be abandoned the moment friction appears. There's a psychological conflict happening underneath the surface, and most people never name it. On one side, there's you that wants to be consistent. You that makes the goal. The you that feels the pull toward growth, toward building something, toward becoming someone who follows through. This part of you is real. It's genuine. It's not lying to you. On the other side, there's a much older version of you. This is the you that's been shaped by every time you quit before. Every failed New Year's resolution. Every fitness app you downloaded and never opened again. Every book you were going to read. Every hobby that lasted 3 weeks. This older version of you has learned something through repetition. I'm not someone who finishes things. This isn't just a belief. It's become part of your identity. And identities are powerful. They're more powerful than motivation. They're more powerful than willpower. They're more powerful than any system you can design. So when you try to be consistent, you're not just fighting habits. You're fighting a core belief about who you are. You're trying to be something your own identity rejects as inauthentic. And the deeper part of you, the part that protects your self-image, will sabotage you before it lets you actually change who you've decided you are. This is why willpower fails. Willpower is trying to override identity through sheer force. And identity always wins. Always. The conflict is this: you're trying to build a new behavior while remaining fundamentally the same person. And some part of you knows this is a lie. Some part of you senses the contradiction. And that sensed contradiction creates friction, resistance, self-sabotage. You might call it procrastination. You might call it laziness. You might call it weakness. But what's actually happening is that your identity is protecting itself. Your old self-image is fighting to survive against this new thing you're trying to become. Most people never consciously recognize this fight. They just feel it as resistance. as not wanting to do the thing, as the goal matters less and less as the days go on, as the ability to rationalize skipping it becomes easier and easier. The real conflict isn't between you and the behavior. The conflict is between the person you were and the person you're trying to become. And until that conflict gets resolved at the identity level, consistency will always feel like you're fighting yourself. There's a moment that happens. It's not dramatic. You don't usually notice it when it's occurring. It's not a lightning bolt or a sudden realization. It's more like a door opening so slowly that you don't realize it was closed. The transformation happens when consistency stops being something you're trying to do and becomes something you're too convinced of yourself to stop doing. Let me be specific about what this means. It doesn't mean you suddenly become motivated. It doesn't mean the behavior becomes easy. It doesn't mean you stop feeling resistance sometimes. It means something far more fundamental shifts. You stop negotiating with yourself about whether you're going to do it. The psychological move that needs to happen is this: you have to stop deciding each time and start knowing it's non-negotiable. There's a difference between motivation, which is fragile and weather-dependent and easily disrupted, and conviction, which is psychological infrastructure. Conviction is what remains when motivation evaporates. Conviction is what shows up on the morning you're sick. Conviction is what persists when the goal stops feeling shiny and new. This transformation happens in layers. First, it's intellectual. You start to understand that this thing you're trying to build actually matters. Not because someone told you it matters, but because you start to see the connection between the behavior and the person you're becoming. You see that the gym isn't about the body. It's about the person who doesn't negotiate with themselves. The writing isn't about the words. It's about the person who honors their own commitments. The meditation isn't about the peace. It's about the person who's willing to sit with themselves. This intellectual layer starts to shift something. You begin to see the behavior not as a chore but as a statement. A daily statement about who you've decided you are. Then, and this is where it gets real, something psychological rearranges. You do the thing on a day you didn't want to. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're sick. Maybe something genuinely urgent came up. And you do it anyway. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because the alternative, skipping it, feels wrong in a way you can't justify. You've just crossed an identity threshold. This is the moment where the behavior stops being external and becomes internal. This is where it becomes part of your operating system rather than an add-on you're maintaining through willpower. This is where the psychological transformation actually lands. The person who shows up when it's difficult has a different self-image than the person who needed perfect conditions. And once you've been that person, even once, something shifts in how you see yourself possible. This transformation doesn't happen through motivation seminars. It happens through experience. Through the lived evidence of yourself showing up. Through the accumulation of moments where you were the person you're trying to become. And here's the secret part: once this shift happens, consistency stops being something you're maintaining and starts being something you're defending. You're not trying to stay consistent. You're trying to stay true to who you've decided you are. Right now, if you're feeling the weight of all the times you've quit, all the promises you've broken to yourself, all the consistency you've failed to build, I need you to understand something. That's not a weakness. That's evidence that you haven't yet crossed the identity threshold. That's not failure. That's an incomplete transformation. And the fact that you're here, watching this, means some part of you is ready to stop negotiating with yourself. If that's true, if you're ready to stop treating your own commitments as optional, drop a comment telling me what consistency means to you, not the outcome, but what it would mean about who you are. And if this is resonating, subscribe and turn on notifications because we're diving deeper into the psychology that locks consistency in place. The psychological click happens when you realize this. Consistency isn't the result of discipline. Discipline is the result of consistency. This is backwards from how most people think about it, and it changes everything. You don't become disciplined and then become consistent. You become consistent, and then discipline becomes unnecessary because you're just being who you are. Here's what this means in actual psychology terms. You've shifted from an external locus of control to an internal one, but not in the way people usually describe it. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're trying to control the identity. Once the identity is solid, the behavior follows automatically. This is why some people can go years without missing a gym day and it never feels like a sacrifice. This is why some creators can post daily and it never feels like pressure. This is why some people maintain deep relationships and it never feels like an obligation. They've shifted the fundamental reference point from I have to do this to I am someone who does this. The realization is this: you've been approaching consistency backwards the whole time. You've been trying to change your behavior first and hoping your identity would follow. But identity doesn't follow behavior change passively. Identity has to be consciously reconstructed. It has to be deliberately inhabited. And it has to be defended against the old version of you that's still alive somewhere inside, still scared, still carrying the weight of every time you quit. The people who achieve impossible consistency have done something most people never do. They've decided that the identity is non-negotiable, and they've let the behavior follow from that decision. This sounds simple. It's not. Because it means accepting that you're not trying to accomplish something. You're trying to become someone. And those are fundamentally different projects. When you're trying to accomplish something, you can quit when the goal is reached. When you're trying to become someone, quitting means reverting to who you were. And once you've tasted what it feels like to be the consistent version of yourself, reverting becomes intolerable. This is the realization that locks people in. It's not that they have better willpower. It's not that they love the behavior more. It's that they've made a psychological decision that continuing this behavior is actually a reflection of their core identity, and betraying that would be more painful than any friction the behavior creates. The click is understanding that consistency isn't about the outcome anymore. It's about loyalty to yourself. It's about refusing to be the person who abandons their own commitments. It's about deciding that your word to yourself means something. And here's what's remarkable: once this realization settles in, once you really get this distinction, the whole experience changes. It's not that willpower becomes easier. It's that willpower becomes irrelevant. You're not resisting yourself anymore. You're being yourself. And being yourself doesn't require discipline. It just requires showing up. So how do you actually access this? The mistake most people make is trying to skip to the identity shift before they've built enough evidence. They try to tell themselves they're a consistent person while still acting like someone inconsistent, and then they feel like frauds. The identity won't stick because the behavior hasn't created the foundation. Here's the psychological pathway that actually works. First, stop negotiating with yourself about entry-level consistency. This is not about perfection. This is about showing up on the level that's beneath your excuses. If you want to work out but can't commit to an hour, commit to 15 minutes. If you want to write but can't commit to 2,000 words, commit to 200. If you want to meditate but can't commit to 30 minutes, commit to 3 minutes. The goal here isn't to build the habit. The goal is to build evidence that you don't abandon things once you start them. You're trying to create a pattern of follow-through, even if it's small. This is the foundation that identity transformation builds on. Second, make the behavior friction light. This is not about willpower. This is about removing the psychological resistance before it even forms. If you have to decide what to wear to the gym, you've added friction. If you have to figure out what to write about, you've added friction. If you have to remember your meditation app, you've added friction. Remove the decision. Create the path. Make it so automatic that skipping it requires more effort than doing it. This isn't lazy. This is intelligent design. This is using psychology to work with you instead of against you. Third, track not the outcome but the decision. Don't track whether you lost weight or finished a chapter or felt peaceful. Track whether you showed up. Track the decision, not the result. Because what you're building is identity evidence. What you're creating is a pattern of yourself being the kind of person who does the thing, regardless of how it feels or what happens. This seems subtle. It's not. This completely reframes what you're measuring. You're not measuring success as an external outcome. You're measuring it as internal alignment. Did I stay true to who I've decided to be? Fourth, expect the identity protection moments. There will be moments where your old self fights back. There will be rationalizations. There will be legitimate sounding reasons to skip just this once. There will be days where you genuinely don't want to. This is normal. This is your psychological system trying to protect the old identity. Don't fight these moments with motivation. Don't try to pump yourself up. Just recognize them. Oh, here's the resistance. This is expected. I'm doing this anyway because I'm someone who does this. You're not overriding the resistance through force. You're acknowledging it and moving forward through simple conviction. You're acting like someone who already is who you're becoming. Fifth, stack your identity decisions. The person who's consistent in one area can become consistent in others, but not automatically. You have to consciously expand the identity you've built. Once you've proven to yourself that you don't abandon commitments in the gym, you can prove it to yourself in your creative work. Once you've proven it there, you can prove it in your relationships. You're building a psychological architecture where consistency becomes your baseline, not your exception. Let me paint you a picture of what's possible on the other side of this. There's a version of you, and this isn't fantasy, this is absolutely achievable, who wakes up and doesn't negotiate. Who moves through the day with the kind of integrity that's rare. Who doesn't check their phone to see if they feel like showing up. Who just shows up. Consistently. Automatically. As naturally as breathing. This version of you doesn't hate themselves on the days they do it. They don't feel deprived. They don't feel like they're missing out. They feel like they're home in their own body, in their own commitments, in their own promises. This version of you has a kind of freedom that people who chase motivation will never experience. Because freedom isn't about having infinite options. Freedom is about being locked into something so completely that it's no longer a question. The question has been settled. You've decided who you are, and now you just get to live as that person. The impossible consistency you see in others isn't impossible. It's just the result of a psychological commitment you haven't yet made. It's the result of deciding that your identity is more important than your moods. It's the result of 1,000 small moments where you chose to be the person you're becoming instead of the person you were. Here's what's going to happen now if you choose this. The first week, you'll feel like you're forcing it. You'll have to consciously remind yourself. You'll have to white-knuckle through it. That's okay. That's the entry point. The second week, it gets slightly easier. You'll notice you didn't think about it as much. You'll recognize you're building muscle memory, psychological muscle memory. The third week, something will shift. It won't be dramatic, but you'll notice you want to do it now. Not because you suddenly love it, but because not doing it would feel like abandoning yourself. By week 4, something deeper happens. The behavior stops being a behavior and becomes part of your baseline. You're not maintaining consistency anymore. You're just being consistent. It's integrated into your identity so completely that questioning it would be like questioning your name. This is the moment where it becomes impossible for you to quit. Not because you can't. Because quitting would mean betraying who you've decided you are. And you won't do that. This is the secret psychology behind impossible consistency. It's not that some people are built differently. It's that some people have decided their identity is more important than their comfort. Some people have aligned their behavior with who they've chosen to become. Some people have made the psychological commitment where consistency stops being optional and becomes inevitable. You can be that person. Not someday. Not when you're more motivated. Not when the conditions are perfect. You can be that person now. Today. This moment. By making a decision that's only half about what you're going to do and completely about who you're deciding to be. The gym isn't about your body. It's about becoming someone who honors their commitments. The writing isn't about the words. It's about becoming someone who shows up even when it's hard. Meditation isn't about peace. It's about becoming someone who's willing to be intimate with themselves. Every single thing you do is a vote for who you are. Every time you show up when you don't want to, you're voting for a stronger version of yourself. Every time you skip, you're voting for the version that abandons their own promises. You don't need more motivation. You don't need a better system. You don't need inspiration or permission or perfect conditions. You need to stop treating your own commitments like they're negotiable. You need to stop playing small with your own integrity. You need to stop acting like the person you want to become is someone else, and start acting like it's the version of you that's been trying to emerge the whole time. Consistency isn't about discipline. It's about identity. And identity isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through decisions, through actions, through thousands of moments where you choose yourself over your resistance. If you've watched this far, you already know something most people never figure out. You know that consistency isn't about willpower. You know it's about identity. You know that transformation happens at the psychological level, not the behavioral level. So here's what I need from you. Subscribe to this channel because we're going deeper into the psychology of identity transformation. We're going to show you how to build the psychological infrastructure that makes consistency automatic. Like this video if something landed for you. Comment below with the one area of your life where you're going to stop negotiating with yourself and start being consistent, not trying to be consistent, but being it. And share this with someone who's been stuck in the quit and restart cycle. They need to know that consistency isn't for other people. It's for anyone willing to decide that their identity is non-negotiable. The person you're about to become is built one day at a time. Start today. Not tomorrow. Not Monday. Today. Because that's the only difference between the you who's stuck and the you who's free. It's the decision you make right now.